Crypto Rock, all Cryp, Lord of None. Hey, listen, y'all. Thank you for stopping by the channel again. Hey, I got a chance to interview the one and only David from Switch, formerly Titanium. Now, for crypto culture, you know we're all about community, we're all about you, we're all about education. So don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this video. Now, with David, we talked about a lot of things, so much so that these videos have to be split up. So you're gonna watch the first of what I hope to be many opportunities where we get to have other guests and talk about this revolutionary technology of blockchain, Web3, and cryptocurrency. And then the biggest question is, how do we navigate our way through it? So this format that you're listening to is all about listening. So listen and learn. Now, before I move forward, let me preface it with this statement. The cryptocurrency industry is like the Wild West. True or false? Have you heard this? I've heard this many times. Now, for context, if you're thinking about sheriffs and bandits, you have it all wrong. This was more about the American expansion to the new land. The Wild West was in need of regulation, but exactly what type of regulation? See, y'all, the West was never wild. First thing that came through the Great Plains and the Rocky Mountains and the deserts were corporate-run railroads subsidized by the federal government. They existed because the federal government needed them to establish transportation, and at the time, it was a way to move people, goods, and information. Now, railroad corporations were dominating the West, and they were pretty much making all the rules. There was huge amounts of insider dealings, huge draining of profits, and there was no alternate means of transportation. So these corporations pretty much had all the power. Kind of sounds like corporations today in certain arenas. Now, these corporations ended up garnering a huge amount of public hostility, but the public didn't want the railroads to go away because they needed them. But they did see the corporations as exploiting them, taking advantage of them, taking away profits that should be going to small businesses. Note this, y'all. That is the true definition of the Wild West, which in my opinion is very different from the cryptocurrency industry today. You see, y'all, blockchain technology is not wild. An open public ledger verified and secured by cryptography with an immutable record of all transactions on a network, that's not wild. People are wild. This is why navigating and engaging requires education. From developers to creators and investors, this new space can be quite challenging for all parties, and a vast majority of projects fold within the first 90 days. So my question is, how do you navigate this space? Now imagine seeing and hearing it all from all sides. Imagine having to wear different hats and manage each without a specific bias. Well, that's where the conversation with the one and only David from Switch comes in. Let's talk about it.
Hey man, can you hear me? Am I coming through okay?
I can definitely hear you, all is well.
All right, excellent. Yeah, everything is good. It's good. I'm very excited to be here. Happy to be here with you on your podcast, and happy to be one of your first guests to talk about this crazy but not so crazy crypto space. A lot of people know me in the DeFi space. I am one of the part of the core team for Titano, which, as you know, we just celebrated our 16th month. And yeah, really excited to be here and proud to be here and proud to be a part of crypto and what's going on. You know, as you said, in some ways it is the Wild West, but in many ways it isn't. But it certainly is new and exciting technology, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for giving me the to interview you. Now, I have a couple of questions, but I'm sure the conversation will spin off in many other ways. So I'll just start it off with, how do you manage the responsibility of seeing a project from various sides?
Wow. That's a great question. Yeah, it's challenging. I got into the space. My buddy John, who also works with me at Titano and a few other projects, knew me as a business person who was an entrepreneur, who built up projects in several different countries, and also who consulted projects in a bunch of different industries. And he felt that I would be well suited for this industry. Now, it was interesting because I had come off actually working on a crypto project with a friend of mine who has become one of the whales in the industry, and He's a crypto economist, and he had gotten me into the industry, at least understanding what it was. He was the one that got me to appreciate the benefits of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. And I worked on initially a little bit of a project with him, and then John reached out to me and said, "David, you got to come into this industry, man. I think with your skill set, your way of looking at things, I think you'll do really, really well." So he brought me in, and we started looking at consulting projects and began doing that. And I was immediately taken by the opportunity and the speed and the ability to kind of create things from nothing. And equally, I was taken by the people in the space, the developers, so many young people who were fearless and who had great new ideas on how to approach problems that had been, talked about, but there was nothing being done with them. So I got really enamored with the space. And so I ended up consulting a few projects and became an investor. So I was on both sides, right? One, which was helping projects to grow. A lot of my background is dealing with small companies, helping them to set their vision, and then set a course that allows them to get to their vision. So I'm used to going through the different levels of a project, right? Both the actual project itself and the psychological part, which people don't talk a lot about, right? What happens with the mindsets when something goes from small to big or small to small, and now everyone's got to manage their personalities and their expectations. At the same time, I always like to say, running a crypto project, you have to run two businesses. The first one is the actual business, and the second one is your community, right? You've got to be able to manage them properly. And then on their side, right, there's the expectations and there's the emotional part of it. These projects go up and down, and the factors relating to the project, the macro factors, all of these things. It's really, really, really challenging. I love challenges. I love puzzles. I'm good at multitasking. I'm a quick learner. So for me, it was really, really exciting to see all of these elements and to try and figure out how do we get them to work harmoniously together, each one benefiting the other, right? For the growth of the industry, for people who want to come in and generate generational wealth, right? For people who want to come in and find freedom, right? Crypto represents freedom. The industry was started coming out of the 2008 financial collapse, where people were doing everything right, and still, they ended up in a negative financial situation. People made people realize, I work hard. I'm on this side of the law. I pay my taxes, but I'm not getting further ahead. And why is that? And crypto offered not just an opportunity to change that dynamic, but it also offered some answers. The reason is that you're not participating enough in what's going on. And there's a way to do that. It's by coming together and working together and using these new tools and changing your mindset. All that stuff is really, really interesting to me, and it just drew me more and more to this industry. And so how I deal with it is how I deal with the different dynamics is I try my best to make everyone aware of all the different elements that are related to achieving success in this industry. But it is certainly a challenge. It's one that I'm happy to take on because I believe that it's part of mastering what needs to be mastered in order to have this industry turn into the one that we all know that it can be. Hopefully I answered your question.
Definitely. Well, so I heard you mention community. Like, I'm big on community. So can you just touch on that a little
Yes.
bit?
Yeah, interesting. So one of the things that I noticed when I got into crypto was all of these communities, and they're all on these social platforms. Now, social platforms create an ability to bring people together around a specific topic, but they also create challenges. I was a big believer in social media when it started, and I had high hopes for it being able to pull us all together and work on big problems together. But I realized, shortly after it sort of became what it became, was that, it's a tool like any other tool, and tools can be used for good or for bad. You know, um, nuclear power can be the worst weapon, or it can be the best energy source, or one of the best energy sources. So the same thing with social media, right? Social media has this amazing ability to pull all of us together in one place, but then what? And what it comes down to is really, what is the agenda of the social media platform? And how things have been defined currently with social media, there aren't the guardrails, right, to keep people within a certain area and direct them towards something positive. And I realized that it had to be intentional in order for things to happen. Things aren't just going to get better. People aren't just going to communicate better. People aren't going to work on things together. It's got to be intention in the platform. And a lot of the platforms, just about all of them, don't put that at the forefront, right? They put corporate profits. And remember, if you're on a Facebook and you are having an argument, right, that works to Facebook's benefit, because people are more apt to participate in an argument. And the longer you stand there and argue, or sit there and argue, the more they're putting ads by what you're doing and in your feed. And so they're not going to discourage you from causing them to make more money. That works against what we're talking about, right? Which is, we want community to be us working together. Doesn't mean you don't disagree. In fact, it means you do disagree on certain things, but you work together. And even when you have disagreements, these disagreements are done within the context of making things better for the whole. I'm one of those people that believes in that. That's been my experiences. My most successful experiences have been when people have come together and worked together. Amazing things happen. So, the community side of this is very, very important. But again, there are challenges because the formats, the social media formats that we're in. And so when I was looking around the space initially and made some investments, I started getting into some of these Telegram communities and Discord communities, and I was discouraged a little bit by the tone. There was a lot of arguing about things that I thought were not important to the growth of the project. There was a lot of disappointment. There weren't systems set up to deal with unhappiness, right, and disenchantment with projects. And during that time, right, I saw a lot of projects failing because the communities weren't well managed, well maintained. And it was really disappointing to me, because I thought a lot of those projects had promise, but they either didn't understand or weren't able to, put the elements in place to make sure that community was moving along. So that was one of the areas that I focused on. I said, I really think that a core component of moving this space along is upgrading the quality of communities. And so as I worked with projects, that's one of the things John and I always put at the forefront. Talk to me about your views on community. This is us talking to project owners. Talk with us about your, how you're going to build a community, how you're going to maintain a community, what sort of resources you're going to throw at doing that. And just about in every case, it was sort of an afterthought. Well, we have to have a community, but we don't really know how to manage it. We don't. It's a bunch of people in there who are all screaming "Win Lambo." And what my pushback was, you have to design the type of community that you want. And if you don't like what you have, then it's probably because you haven't put the work in to get what you want. And then what happened was, I was making all these investments and found that, again, this element of projects were failing a lot of times because of a conversation that started in their Telegram group. And in a lot of cases, the conversation wasn't even based on facts. It was based on fear, or based on, someone could come into a project from another project and want to collapse that project, started this conversation in their Telegram group, and it would collapse the project. That was fascinating to me. And in some cases, the people would be fudding their own investments. So, we developed this strategy. We said, whatever we do, it's going to have to be around this community aspect. And so when we came to Titano, that was what we focused on. We've got to build the type of community that we would like to have in support of this project. And I think it's one of the things that allowed us to grow as big as we got and to hold on to our community the way that we have. People loved the community, and we watched it sort of spread out into the DeFi space where people were saying, man, we want a community like Titano, or people were coming and saying, man, I left that project, because the community isn't like you guys. And so, I say this often. I believe that most of the projects that are, not rug pulls and not ones that are just obvious bad ideas, those that fail because they don't manage their communities well. I mean, a lot of these big projects like Terra, I thought that project failed because of poor community management. I get it that the token depegged, but that's not the death warrant for a project. If you look at what happened with Do Kwon, and his comments after it depegged and what was going on, instead of him going into the community and having I would have done a 72-hour or longer YouTube live stream and took everyone's questions and calmed everyone down and got them to, hey, listen, yeah, I get it. Let me tell you what you're going to do. Instead, he's on Twitter going, I got it. Dude, you don't have it. You don't have it. And so, people ran away. So I'm really, really big on community. Community is going to get us to where we want to go. It's not going to be a protocol. It's not going to be some use case or some idea. It's going to be people holding together when things go bad, and all of these projects will have problems because they're all experiments. So it's communities holding together. So I like to say now, Titano showed that community has to be part of your protocol. That's how critical it is. So yeah, we are big on community. I am really, really big on community. I'm always reminding communities how much of a role they have in the growth and the success and the longevity and the sustainability of projects. And I think that that's going to grow. And on the other side, from a project standpoint, the projects have to. They've got to make being able to manage their communities well part of what they're doing. And if they can't do it, they need to bring in people that can. It's critical. It is critical.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think community can either make or break your project.
That's true.
So, in my opinion, the communication which comes from the top down is important also. And, I just commend y'all for what you do when you are in the Telegram or the Discord, because, there's so many different types of people. And one word said one way can be misconstrued, and
Yes.
someone thinks it's something else. So managing the community is very important.
Yeah, you're very right about that. And I sometimes ask people to kind of consider that thing that they want so badly for us to do, someone else absolutely hates it. They think it's the worst idea. And I'm constantly getting messages about, don't do this, you better not do that, you better not stop rebasing, when are you going to stop rebasing? And so that's what community means, right? It's bring it all out, let's have a conversation, let's give you our rationale around it, and then let's get your input, and and then let's make the best decision. It's interesting. A lot of times when I end up in confrontational type conversations, people will DM me and go, hey man, you don't have to put up with this. And I go, no, I do have to put up with this, right? Not disrespect, but I need to hear it, right? Because that person sometimes has a really good point. Maybe they're expressing it poorly, but they have a really good point. And so it's critical to let them know that they're being heard. It's critical to let them know that they're being heard.
Very important. I mean, your investors are your community, so.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. I'll tell you one other aspect of that. And I had this conversation today in Telegram, and that is delivering information and roadmaps. Roadmaps are interesting, right? It's kind of like, I do business plans and, and projections and everything. And what I would always say when I was talking to an investor about projections, right? This is just, in the air. It means nothing other than it shows you that I know how to make, spreadsheets with numbers, right? Because no one can tell the future. You can sit back and project and project and project. Don't get me wrong. As you go along, you might get better at it. But, initially it's nothing. So roadmaps, everyone likes to see these roadmaps with, quarter one, we're going to do this, quarter two, we're going to do this, quarter three, we're going to do this, quarter four, we're going to do this. And it's challenging because the market's changing. The market's always changing. And so if I project out something that's going to happen a year from now and people buy into that, now you're kind of stuck because you're down the road and they're waiting for it to come, but it's no longer applicable to what you're doing. And so what happened, again, talking about Titano, was we were kind of in this, well, if we say it and don't do it, then everyone's going to be going, well, why didn't you do it? And you said it and all these sorts of things. So how can we trust you? But if we don't say it, then people are going to, well, where are we taking this thing? Where are we going? And so we've, over the time we've been around, we've kind of gone back and forth. Okay, more information, less information, more specific information, less. And we're in the more specific information period right now, but trying to manage it because the additional effect is that it ends up taking a lot of everyone's time to answer a lot of individuals about why didn't you guys do this, or where's this on the roadmap? So now if we've changed, we got to go back in and, okay, listen, this, and we did say that, but this happened. It takes a lot of extra time. So that's something that's a challenge as well.
I mean, that's life. You have to make adjustments, and
Yeah,
I
you
think
do.
that's the thing that some investors who are looking for $1 million in a week,
Right.
like you have to understand everything takes time, and like you
Yes.
said, no one can predict the future, so you make adjustments as necessary. And I think that was one of my questions,
Mm,
which you may have answered it, but it says, when is it necessary as a project or even as an investor to make adjustments?
that's a good question. Well, you asked some great questions. So that's really challenging, right? It depends on the project, depends on what your vision is, where you're going, what you want to get accomplished. It depends on, the project factors, right? Your community, you got to be sensitive to them. It depends on macro factors, right? What goes on, as we know, right? The crypto industry is heavily manipulated by forces outside of the crypto industry. I mean, why did the market just pump? Right? That made absolutely no sense unless you have all the factors, right? Which we don't know most of them. So, what you have to do, and what I've learned in this space is what I've known for, all my business life, and that is you want people who are light on their feet, right? But sure of themselves. That's what you want. And so you want people to constantly pay attention to what's going on. They're not so fixed on something that they can't adjust. But also, you want people who make data-based decisions, right? You want people who are not just moved around by FUD or moved around by YouTube sentiment. You want people who are going to look at the data and say, okay, based on what we know, this is the best way forward. This is a great decision for us. So, that's how I would describe, as people are looking for projects, watch for people that do that. Watch for projects that do that. They're constantly taking in data, and they're constantly assessing themselves. And again, the sentiment of things and looking for a way forward. A lot of projects started in down one road and went down another road just because things changed. Right. So, that's important. Look at Netflix. Right. I remember Netflix used to, there was a video store called Blockbuster, and Netflix had this model where they would deliver the videos to your home. I mean, yes, I am aging myself. And that was their business model. Right. You didn't have to get late fees taking your DVDs back. Right. You could just order it from Netflix and you don't have to worry about it. And now look at what they do. They're the largest streaming company in the world. I remember when they made that switch, it's like, wait a minute, what? You're going to do what? You're going to be a streaming business? What streaming? And now they're the largest video, film, and television production company in the world. Oh, you're going to go from just sending the movies over a wire to making them? Those are major changes, right? But again, it was data-based and and well thought out and smart. Right now, they look like geniuses.
I mean, it's adjustments that have to be made, and they didn't know that that's what they were going to do originally, but because they made those adjustments, they're still here.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Longevity is important. I was watching a video
yesterday. It was called a Hive. The Hive VeChain is a token that I was paying attention to, and
Yes.
the owner or the one of the founders, he said 1 year in crypto is like 7 years. So to think that a token's been around for over a year, that's a lot of changes.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is, and you know, and we're in an industry, right, where you know people understand that, but with humans, a lot of humans, change is difficult. You know, change is scary.